Oh boy, guys, I love being right. I put out a video like 4 days ago that was something along the lines of, the Epstein files are going to destroy Donald Trump. I think that was the title. Or like, this will be the end of him. I was very confident in that video that in the coming weeks, we're going to start getting a trickle of information from the Epstein files that, according to the DOJ, is going to end up accumulating to be far worse for Trump than was previously thought by most Republicans. Even many in the Republican Party who were like months ago, were MAGA diehards, are jumping ship. They're flipping and trying to get out in front of it because they know the Epstein files will be coming out and Trump will eventually be fully exposed. And they don't want to be on the side that tried to hide the inevitably publicized information. It's not a good look for them. And this means that Donald Trump doesn't even realize how much support he's losing. And sure enough, yesterday, big headline hit. Of course, on my day off, always on my day off. Big headline hit. I was right. The first of, no doubt, many leaks has hit the headlines. Some leaked emails from Jeffrey Epstein that came from his estate, where he references Trump quite a few times, including just outright, and this is really going to be the big part of the story that no matter how much Republicans try to twist it, like, you can't deny this, is both Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, I believe, in those emails, confirming that Donald Trump knows about the girls and is a dog that won't bark. That is to say, won't go talking to people, won't go ratting them out. And then, of course, there were a lot of other messages that referenced, like, the victims not wanting to show up at Epstein's place and see Trump there, that kind of thing. It was wild. And that is far from the worst of the worst that'll be coming out about Trump. And we're already seeing the big MAGA pundits have to, like, resort back as far as saying, well, okay, well, technically, it's not pedophilia. Technically, it's like we're already seeing that line of defense for Donald Trump coming up from the hardcore MAGA pundits who make their living off of defending him. But the people are pissed. 3/4 of the country want the Epstein files released in full, okay? This is a mass majority of Americans who are into this topic, who want to know who is implicated, and it will impact their future vote. And whoever tries to keep these files from getting out is committing political suicide. Let me make that very, very clear. And that's why, with this news, I trust Voidzilla, or CopyZilla. He's been making really good coverage of this entire situation. He doesn't buy into, like, Trump's excuses and whatnot. He's called out Trump for being a crypto scammer, rug puller many times at this point, including other people in the Trump family. So he's not going to take things easy, but he's also a little bit more into this. Like, he's willing to get a little more into what the mainstream media won't necessarily say. Such as, in my case, where I will call Trump a pedophile. Most media outlets will not do so. That's the neat thing about being a YouTuber, as opposed to being, like, CEO of CNN or something. Anyway, if you end up enjoying this video, leave a like and a comment down below. It really does help a ton. Maybe, just comment Trump is a pedo, but spell the E as a 3, so YouTube doesn't stop that from getting posted or, like, ban you. Comment that down below. Helps a ton. Subscribe if you want to see more. Let's get into it. Oh, and, hype the video. That also helps. Let's go!
Today we're talking about the 20,000 Epstein files that got released. It's a complicated picture involving a lot of powerful people, but let me just say right up front, this is an ongoing story. There's a lot that's going to be released in the coming days.
Yes.
So just understand we're going to do our best.
Keep in mind, this, in, like, a number of weeks, will probably be the least spicy thing to come out of the Epstein files. I'm not joking.
To explain what has been happening, because this story has been full of twists and turns. It starts with the Democrats releasing 3 emails from the Jeffrey Epstein estate. One says that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. A victim spent hours at my house with him. Another says the victim, Mar-a-Lago, Trump says he asked me to resign. Never a member ever, Jeffrey Epstein. Of course, he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine Maxwell to stop. And then the third email is from Michael Wolff talking about Jeffrey Epstein's associate.
For those who don't know what Trump was telling Ghislaine Maxwell to stop doing, he wasn't telling her to stop trafficking children. He was telling her to stop poaching teenage girls that work at Mar-a-Lago to be trafficked. Which was, of course, the hinge of Trump and Epstein's entire breakup, was that Epstein was poaching girls from Mar-a-Lago. Like, this is all publicly known. Multiple of Epstein's victims worked at Mar-a-Lago, were masseuses, or like teenage girls working at Mar-a-Lago, got poached by Epstein, and admittedly by Trump, he said this recently, that was what caused him to break it up with Epstein. So, make no mistake, Trump was not being a hero telling Ghislaine to stop trafficking kids. He was telling her to stop trafficking his kids.
With Trump saying you can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you, or if it looks like he really could win, you could save him generating a debt. Basically implying the idea that Epstein would have some kind of compromising information on Trump. But that was just the start of it, because then after that, the GOP came out swinging. They said Democrats whine about releasing the files, but they only cherry pick when they have them to generate clickbait. You deserve the full truth. And then they released over 20,000 files. Some of it had to do with Trump, some of it didn't. Importantly,
I love this. The Republicans have consistently said there's no more Epstein files. There's nothing at all. And then, then they release this as a response to the extra stuff that the Democrats release. It's like, what? Like, you literally just said a month ago there was nothing else of interest, and now you're releasing more stuff to try and debunk what the Democrats released? So clearly there's more, way more, because this clearly isn't everything.
Two of the emails that were in there were some of the ones that the Democrats released, except they were unredacted in the GOP copy. And these lack of redactions are obviously very intentional. So we see first, I want you to realize the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. And then it says, Virginia spent hours at my house with him. Now that name is really important because it's Virginia Giuffre. She was the Prince Andrew accuser, but importantly, she did not accuse Trump, rather saying that he couldn't have been friendlier. This obviously is one of the main reasons the GOP appears to have released this, because in part, they're implying that, hey, if you release this redacted, people are going to speculate who this victim was, thinking that there was something that happened, but actually...
What I love is that Republicans' angle on this is Democrats redacted the name of the victim. That's typically how things go with these situations. No one is calling for the Epstein victim list. Nobody. Nobody is out here screaming from the rooftops, publicize the Epstein victim list. People want the Epstein client list. The abusers in question. Now, to be clear, I think the Republicans and even the average conservative damn well knows that nobody is suggesting that Epstein and Trump were the only ones working together to do some kind of exploitation. Obviously, Epstein was very close with many people, including Prince Andrew. Virginia Giuffre was one of many, 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 many Epstein accusers. Many more list Trump. There was a lawsuit, we read about it a bit ago, where I believe it's two different women sued Epstein and Trump. And Prince Charles, I believe. Or he's just Charles now. Or is it Prince Andrew, I guess? Is it Prince Andrew or Prince Charles? I forget which one. I don't know. But yeah, the entire idea... Yeah, Citizen Andrew. Yeah, Citizen Andrew. Yeah, that's really good. I like that. Citizen Andrew instead of Prince Andrew. Yeah, well, he's now one of many accusers, or one of many accused in this whole Epstein thing, as is Trump. But the idea that, if Trump is not named by one accuser, that debunks the entire involvement is wild. Especially with the news that we got the other day, where the DOJ themselves admitted to several Republicans that Trump is heavily implicated in the Epstein files, and it's way worse for him than any of them originally thought.
The person that's in there didn't accuse Trump of something illegal. And so this is sort of the implication here with the Democrats saying, well, you're unredacting a victim's name. So that's been the battle there. Specifically, the second email, by the way, just further confirms it. It says blank worked at Mar-a-Lago. She was one of the ones that accused Prince Andrew. In the Democrat copy, all of that was redacted because, of course, it gives away the fact that we are talking about, once again, Virginia Giuffre.
Yeah, for those that don't know, the only connection that, at least as far as we know, that Virginia Giuffre had with Trump specifically, was that she worked for him and was poached by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and then was trafficked.
Frey. Also in these emails released by the Republicans, it says, blank worked at Mar-a-Lago. Trump knew of it, came to my house many times. He never got a massage. That's straight from Jeffrey Epstein clearing him of a massage, which obviously is the one person you most don't want to get a massage from. So honestly, that is good for him, which is obviously why they released it. Begging the question why they didn't release it sooner. Maybe it's because they didn't want people to know that.
Well, we know why they didn't release it sooner. Because a line of Epstein saying Trump didn't get a massage is not clearing Trump's name. That doesn't clear Trump's name unless you are desperate for something to pull to try and clear Trump's name after something very severe has come out about him. There is a reason Republicans have refused to release any of this information, and we're only hearing about it now. There is a reason Republicans, MAGA, the White House, and Trump have claimed there is no more to do with Epstein that would be of interest for the public to see. And yet we know that's a lie. The Democrats have been the ones consistently calling for the Epstein files to be released. Last year, look over the last year, nothing but the Democrats calling for the Epstein files to be released. And now, you've got Republicans on a year-long streak of saying there are no more Epstein files, and they're the ones releasing more to try and dissuade blame from Trump. The fact is, we would have seen all this sooner if Trump was actually innocent. He's not. It is in the best interest of a guilty party to keep as much evidence and as much information withheld and to themselves as possible, and only offering what evidence they need to, what information they need to, upon the levying of an allegation.
That Trump knew about the girls. Now, one thing I want to talk about is the fact that Epstein is saying, hey, look, Trump publicly said that it was me that he asked to stop, but actually it was Ghislaine that he asked to stop. And my question here is, if it is Maxwell that was the one who poached Virginia Giuffre from Mar-a-Lago and then trafficked her, then why is she getting so much special treatment? I mean, that is the part where the Republicans don't look good at all. I mean, what?
This is something undeniable. Like, Ghislaine Maxwell publicly calling Trump a gentleman and then proceeding to receive unbelievable amounts of special treatment as a child sex criminal is insane. Fucking insane that people aren't seeing that alone and going, oh, they're paying her off. Like, they bribed her, she's taken the bribe, and she's clearing Trump's name publicly because it's either she gets Epsteined or she gets to serve the rest of her time in much more comfortable situation. Guys, they gave her a puppy. I'm not joking. One of the things Ghislaine Maxwell's been given as a reward since she cleared Trump's name, quote-unquote, is a puppy. They gave her a prison emotional support puppy.
What is going on with Ghislaine Maxwell, a convicted sex offender, trying to get a pardon, getting Todd Blanche to give her a softball interview, and then she immediately gets preferential treatment? Look, we've been over the fact that she's at basically a special prison in Bryan, Texas, where normally someone of her status wouldn't be allowed to go to because it's too nice, it's too low security. But in addition to that, new reports are saying that top officials at Camp Bryan are sick of being Maxwell's bitch. Federal law enforcement staff working at the camp have been waiting on Maxwell hand and foot, including, by the way, reportedly she's been given a puppy as part of the preferential treatment she's been receiving. Overwhelmingly.
The fact that people are not seeing that alone and going, oh, she's getting her payout for taking the bribe. That's so obvious. You guys know what Trump's cronies behind the scenes call him, right? Who here knows what Trump's behind the scenes nickname is that everybody who works under him calls him? Once you know, it'll bring all of this together for you. I'm just going to tell you. Yep, Lord Rose knows. The boss. They call him the boss behind the scenes.
Yeah, you don't want to make the boss unhappy now, do you? You know, you wouldn't want to make the boss mad.
Maxwell has been getting a super nice ride in all of this. This, of course, makes us all wonder, once again, what do they have on Trump? I mean, why treat her like this if she doesn't have something compromising in all of that? It just kind of begs some questions.
Best case scenario is Trump has nothing to do with any of it, but just seems to be very down to give this pedophile, sex offender, an easy ride through prison. For no reason. That alone is already sus.
You probably don't want to ask. Also very suspicious is the fact that immediately after this report came out, Trump personally called Rep. Lauren Boebert, urging her to withdraw support for releasing the Epstein files. Bondi, Blanche, and Patel, we're going to meet today about the Epstein files. This, of course, is furthering the idea the White House has no interest in this story. I think Trump tweeted multiple times today about the Epstein hoax. Again, we've heard that a million times. And the question is,
I'll never forget when Trump said,
why are people still talking about Epstein? He's been dead for years now. This guy just won't die.
He just won't die? Bro, are you sure you meant to say that out loud? Crazy.
Why are you acting so suspicious if you have nothing to hide, right? If you didn't get the massage, which Epstein says, what are you hiding? Why are you so worried about all this stuff coming out? By the way, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was actually asked about the White House pressuring people to get them not to sign for the release of the Epstein files, and her response was pretty insane.
Why are White House officials then meeting with
Get ready for the Trump
Goldberg in
blazing.
an effort to try and get her to not sign this petition calling for the release of the files?
Doesn't it show transparency that members of the Trump administration are willing to brief members of Congress whenever they
No.
please? Doesn't that show our level of transparency? Doesn't that show the level of transparency when we are willing to sit down with members of Congress and address their concerns?
It shows transparency to try to go and block files being released on the world's most prolific but the fact
Caroline Leavitt has said no less than 15 times, there is no client list and there is no more to the Epstein files. Everything they have has been released. And then she oversaw the release of more files that months ago she was doubling and tripling down on not existing as a response to what the Democrats had released.
we know about it, that's the transparent part. It's just insane. I mean, that's the kind of spin we've expected with this story all along. That's been part of what's been so frustrating about all of this. So look, I want to get back to this story because there's so many people involved here. We're just going to go through one by one. I mean, look, it's a lot more than just
Hillary,
Trump, like one person.
This one's interesting. Me and my buddies, I was talking to Ethan in our friend group on Discord last night about this. This is actually juicy as fuck. This is unironically some real ass conspiracy theory level shit. It more or less confirms Hillary Clinton had an affair with with an ex-lawyer. I believe he was, I forget what job he worked in government during the Clinton administration. But at some point, while Hillary Clinton was was serving as Secretary of State, she had an affair with this guy. And a year later, maybe, he committed suicide. Maybe the pussy was just so good, bro would rather face oblivion than to live the rest of his life without ever getting it again. But I don't know, man. That's a reach. That's a reach to me. I think something fishy happened. I've never been, open to those ideas, but man. The idea that, some crazy shit might happen to cover up an affair, who knows? I mean, if Bill and Hillary both cheated on each other, at this point it's well, I mean, they seem to have figured it out.
And that caught kind of a weird stray in all of this was the fact that Epstein talked about Hillary doing naughties with Vince. Vince being Vince Foster, a White House counsel. There was a rumor.
To be fair, it's not confirmed, but private messages talking about this, it's okay. Who would they be lying for? Who would Epstein and the party he's emailing with be lying for? These were never supposed to see the light of day, so why would they be spinning conspiracy theories for no there'd be no reason to.
About Clinton and Vince having some kind of affair, and then later Vince was found dead of suicide. And this is where we see Jeffrey Epstein and Michael Wolff's kind of symbiote.
Should I not be saying that word? I guess YouTube really doesn't like it. A lot of YouTubers say unalive, I guess, and I always find that so cringe, but it's very possible that YouTube hits your videos with some severe penalties if you say that word. Gotta be careful about that. The S word. Game ending. Unaliving.
Relationship. Michael Wolff is a journalist who has been prolific in all of this. Well, I struggle to call him a journalist, actually, because as what we'll find, he was more like a PR guy for Epstein. But he was actually asking Epstein and using Epstein for a lot of access to information. Because Michael Wolff actually told Jeffrey Epstein, hey, basically, I'm interviewing him this afternoon. Anything you think I should ask? And he's talking about Trump. Epstein replies, do you want to be provocative? Michael Wolff says, job is to get the hard ones in without being ejected from the room. What's the one that pierces through? Jeffrey Epstein basically says, hey, you can do this softball. That's a Hillary problem. He would smile, and then you can ask about his relationship with the Electricians Union and Mar-a-Lago, and out you go. Obviously hinting to the idea that he's going to get kicked out if he asks about more sensitive subjects. Michael Wolff asks about, hey, what's up with Foster? And then he describes what that's all about. And this brings us to Michael Wolff, who I want to spend a
I don't think people realize how much shady stuff is going on with Epstein. People cannot figure out how he got so rich and influential. Not without some pretty crazy theories. Epstein's story, officially, is he made some crazy smart moves in the stock market, multiplied his wealth exponentially, and ended up ultra wealthy in a matter of years. From basically dead broke to ultra wealthy in a matter of years. That is the official story. I'm not saying that rich people don't lie about how they went from rags to riches. That happens, but Epstein's story really doesn't check out. Like, I think even it was like Jimmy Buffett or something, like, went through and figured out or not Jimmy Buffett. Who is it? Who's the guy that's like super like stock market brain? Who am I thinking of? It's like the stock market mastermind. I forget what his name is. He went through, along with many others. Yeah, Warren Buffett, not Jimmy Buffett. Warren Buffett. He went through a bunch of other like big deal stock market like experts that have made millions and millions, like, I don't know, maybe billions off the stock market. They went through and they looked at the history of the US market's movement, and at the times when Epstein claims to have made his money, it was not possible for anybody to have made that amount of money. He couldn't have shorted anything to have made that money. He couldn't have invested low and sold high in that time period to make that amount of money. It is mathematically and evidentiarily impossible. The "I made the money off of stocks" excuse was a, I think, go-to easy excuse for having money that he couldn't explain. And in reality, if you actually look at the history of the market, it does not show the kind of movement necessary for Epstein's story to be true. So, however Epstein got his money, however he used said money, or already had said money, to get influence with people like Donald Trump and all these other powerful people, we don't know. But what we do know is that Epstein's story is almost certainly bullshit. It is basically impossible for him to have actually made his wealth off of the stock market. And that raises the question, how did he get so wealthy? Probably human trafficking? You say that, but it's like, he was doing that from a position of power. Many speculate he was doing it not as a business, but as a way to blackmail and get dirt on wealthy, powerful people and hold connections and networking bridges that, you know, couldn't be burnt by the other side without fear of reprisal. So, I don't know. I think Epstein's job was to get blackmail on as many wealthy, powerful people as possible. A lot of people have been leaning towards that. A lot of people think he was like a Mossad agent working for Israel, collecting blackmail on politicians and celebrities and famous rich people to get them, like, in control. Because why wouldn't you do that, to be fair? If you were a world government, would you not be sending out, like moles to find, like, scummy rich people to get, like, blackmail on them and get them in your pocket behind the scenes? Like, you'd be stupid not to be doing that, so,
little bit of time here on. Although some of you may not know as much about him, you may be less interested in him, I think he's one of sort of the worst looking people in all of this. Actually, after reading these emails, he may be the most disgusting person that comes out of that, and that's saying a lot given what's in here, but I want to just show you this because actually the Democrats...
Zan, look up his history with Wexner. It makes sense where he got his money. I'll look into that. Didn't he have an FBI contact? I do believe it's been confirmed he had an FBI handler. I could be wrong, but I swear to God he did, and that is definitely... that's something. But it's also not that crazy when you consider he dealt with charges, but then again, somebody important made those charges get dropped in, what was it, 2008, 2003? I forget what the Florida case was that got dropped after a weird call was made to the prosecutor and judge.
Initially released was this idea was that Michael Wolff and Epstein were basically planning how to respond to Epstein being brought up in the context of Trump. Michael Wolff says, I hear CNN is planning to ask Trump about his relationship with you, either on air or in Scrum afterwards. Epstein says, if we were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be? That being interesting because it's like, wait, were they in touch with Trump at this time? Because Trump denied being in contact with Epstein basically since early 2000s. But anyway.
And if they're not in contact and they aren't friendly anymore, why are they rooting for Trump separate from any relation to him and, like, strategizing how they can sweep for him? For his association with them in the past. Like, why? Like, if they weren't on his side, why would they be talking like this?
If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the House, and that gives you valuable PR or political currency, you can hang him in a way that generates a positive benefit for you. Or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him generating a debt Of course, it is possible that when asked, he'll say Jeffrey's a good guy that's gotten a raw deal and is victim of political correctness, which is to be outlawed in the Trump regime. Now, if it doesn't sound like PR, it might be sounding like blackmail to you. It's like kind of a little bit of both.
Yeah. The Mossad agent conspiracy theorists out there, the people who think that Epstein was a Mossad agent, are eating good today. They're eating really good right now. They have never felt more like their side might be right. And I gotta say, I'm starting to be like, what was this guy's deal? What was his purpose? He clearly had a purpose.
Michael Wolff is basically conspiring to generate a debt for Jeffrey Epstein from Trump, who is about to become the most powerful person on the planet. So that's really bizarre, because Michael Wolff has positioned himself as sort of this truth teller about Jeffrey Epstein, and he's got all these tapes that he's going to release showing how close Trump and Epstein were. But it's like, behind the scenes, he was actually kind of running PR for Epstein, which is sort of the worst thing you could have ever done. This is in 2016. Michael Wolff is talking to Epstein about a Patterson book, which later becomes the James Patterson Filthy Rich book. He says basically that would present some time issues if it was released too early. You would not be able to do a competing book or documentary before then. That's not to say it shouldn't be pursued. In a sense, better to know what Patterson's position is and a year from now be able to counter it. In 2016, he's playing like PR, I'm going to fix your reputation, Jeffrey Epstein. It's
a bad look. There are a lot about all this that the Republicans do not want to even acknowledge with the response. The Republicans, when things are really bad, they don't even bother responding to it. They ignore it. Because they know talking about it is the worst thing they can do. They understand the Streisand effect. The worst of the worst of the worst things to come out that would hurt the Republicans, you know it's bad when the Republicans won't even talk about it.
Says, that being said, if you need an immediate counter to the book, I believe Trump offers an ideal opportunity. It's a chance to make the story about something other than you while at the same time letting you frame your own story. Also, becoming an anti-Trump voice gives you a certain political cover, which you decidedly don't have now. And so again, we get the idea of him kind of scheming to get Epstein cover, which is so bad, because now Michael Wolff is like, oh, we're the guy exposing Trump's connections to Epstein. It's like, buddy, what are your connections to Epstein? Then we have later them discussing a lawsuit against Epstein and Donald Trump with a woman claiming that she was raped. Michael Wolff responds, well, I guess if there's anyone who can wave this away, it's Donald. Let me know if there's anything I can do. Again, why are you trying to do something for a man accused of these things? It really seems like Michael Wolff was kind of running cover here. Now, I also want to talk about the Prince Andrew Trump scandal that appears to have been brewing here, or at least is implied in the emails. You may see some people say that Epstein met Trump and Prince Andrew back in 2019, which of course would be well after Trump said they had no contact, which would be bad news for Trump. In fact,
that's like, what, a year before Epstein was killed too? That's pretty wild if true. That's pretty wild if true. A lot of people love to conveniently forget who was president when Epstein died. Don't ever let them distract you from the fact that Trump was the president and had been for years when Epstein was arrested and when Epstein died. No, the Democrats were not running our country. It was a federal prison as well. Yeah. Yep. Federal prison.
There's a few things in here which suggest that Epstein had contact with Trump. Of course, we don't know for sure. I'll just present you the evidence we do have. So this is back in 2019, June 3rd. They're talking about London real estate, about how financials are going to leave. Then Epstein says, once they are gone, the monarchy is dependable, saying Prince Andrew and Trump today, too funny. And this is actually the same day that Trump and Andrew are spotted in London, of course, meeting together. Andrew. Jeffrey Epstein says, recall Prince Andrew's accuser came out of Mar-a-Lago, Virginia Giuffre.
The Citizen Andrew thing will never not be funny. I'm sorry, there's just something about that just tickles me pink, and I'm going to continuously call him that now. He is now Citizen Andrew.
Then we have a sender that's blacked out, but I think there's strong evidence that it's Steve Bannon, by the way, just to give you some context. They say, can't believe nobody is making you the connective tissue. So the connective tissue between these two being Epstein. And then Epstein replies, F and B only. Now later, Jeffrey Epstein says, report from London. Donald now thinks he's king. Ivanka a princess. He doesn't need advisors. Bannon says, yep, London trip not good. He had a gleam in his eye. Of course, this hinting at the idea that Epstein was there. If he got a report from London, if he's talking about Prince Andrew and Trump, or that's how people are coming to that conclusion at least. And then we have...
You think that Epstein might be a Russian asset, not an Israeli asset. That's the thing. I don't know if Epstein was necessarily any government's asset either, you know? Like, for all we know, he was a corporate asset. Like, or not an asset at all, and just was individually using blackmail to get in close with powerful rich people. And was doing sex trafficking to create said blackmail. And himself was a pedophile. Like, it's really just hard to say. Like, it could be as simple as Epstein was a rich, powerful creep, and there's just a lot of people like that, and they share their perversions with each other. Or it could be something more organized. Something planned.
The thread that makes us know this is Steve Bannon, which is he gives a link where it says Steve Bannon believes Trump obstructed justice. Michael Wolff says, he says, BBC crushed him. He should give it up. The book is going to be a stiff. I don't know if he senses that. Epstein replies, unfortunately, I do know his comments have encouraged some to look to you for answers. This all being about an article about Steve Bannon, obviously. And then Steve Bannon says, Burke says, I have zero to worry about. Now, if you don't know who Burke is, he's a lawyer who previously defended Steve Bannon. Epstein then replies, good but unnecessary. Should I call?
Steve Bannon is one of the most evil masterminds behind Trump's entire takeover of politics. If you've seen the more exclusive interviews he's done, he'll just openly lay out the entire conservative propaganda strategy. You've probably heard this phrase a lot. Steve Bannon basically invented it. It's called flooding the zone. It's the practice that conservatives engage in where they breakneck the left-wing news outlets with so much news to cover every day that you can't focus and fully cover any given story. Like, they want to spread the left so thin that we can't competently cover any individual thing because we have to cover everything a little bit. It's called flooding the zone, and it's one of many strategies as the mastermind of Trump's takeover that Bannon employed.
Michael Wolff. Bannon says, what are you going to say to him? He's a wild animal caught in a trap. Epstein says, catch his breath. Bannon says, tell him to lay off me. It's both not working and not helping. Okay. Done. Again, this is all in the context of Michael Wolff talking about Steve Bannon, and then he says, hey, tell him to back off. This is furthering the idea that Epstein, Bannon, Michael Wolff, they all had a close relationship, which is mostly public knowledge, but we see exactly how close. Now, in addition to this, I also wanted to note this very strange interaction between these two, where Epstein sends a news article about George Nader being basically caught up in some child pornography charges, and then Bannon says, not cool. Epstein, mandatory minimum 15. Bannon says, MBZ must have coughed him up. How did he get extradited? Could have stayed in UAE forever. Epstein says he was not extradited. He was...
I love how every creep pedophile has the same plan. Go to the UAE and never leave.
Duped. Bannon. WTF. Epstein. There is his bail hearing today, currently in Brooklyn.
For those that don't know, that's also what Andrew Tate wanted to do. He was going to try to flee to the UAE.
Doesn't look good. Pre-trial detention. Now, I personally found it strange that they were so concerned about the fate of someone caught up in such horrible charges. We'll also talk about the Thanksgiving message. This one got a lot of attention, which is that Epstein was going to Thanksgiving, and he was asked, where are you having Thanksgiving? He says, Eva. This lady, Faith Cates, replies, he's such a snooze. Who else is down there? He replies, David Fizzle, Hansen, Trump. And
2017.
once again, Trump claims that he was not in contact with Jeffrey Epstein after the early 2000s. He said, hey, I cut him off. I realized he was a bad...
Once again, another meeting between Epstein and Trump while Trump's president. Well after their supposed breakup and never speaking again. So, you know, Trump caught in a lie, multiple lies, repeated lies with that. But also, even fishier, Trump meeting with Epstein while he is president.
Guy. And if Epstein's having Thanksgiving with him, that's obviously a problem. Now, I don't have any public confirmation for that outside of these emails, which are basically talking about it, implying it. Once again, the same is true.
Most people are taking it as gospel, though, because in a series of private emails between parties where it was never meant to go public, why would there be lies being said between the parties as if to, like, convince the public of a falsehood? Like, why would they mention these multiple meetings between Trump and Epstein if they never happened? And their goal is clearly to cover for Trump, to cover for Epstein, because obviously, you know, Epstein's emails. But also, like, what would be... It makes no sense. Like, clearly Trump and Epstein are, like, we're close up until Epstein's death.
True of Prince Andrew. Do you actually think these emails are about him actually seeing them, or is he just reporting on it? It's kind of hard to know, but I just want you to know what's out there. You also should know about the foreign governments that Epstein was working with. In one email, you have Jeffrey Epstein talking about advising a Russian ambassador. He says,
that actually puts a little bit of, that puts some weight on, who was it that said, somebody in chat earlier said, yeah, Moon Slippers. He's a Russian asset, not an Israel agent, in my opinion. This puts some evidence on that idea.
Churkin was great. He understood Trump after our conversations. It's not complex. And Churkin was a Russian ambassador at the time until he died. And then you also have Israel. There are a bunch of public reports about Israel being implicated with Epstein, how spies stayed with him at the time, and some of them even met at Epstein's house. And then you also have some emails between Epstein and a UAE royal, a sultan. So Epstein was rubbing shoulders with the top cream of the crop of our society. I mean,
Bro had connections, okay? Bro had connections across the sea and the planet.
I don't think that should come as a shock. We should also probably talk about Larry Summers. He was in an article, Mogul Donor Gives Harvard More Than Money. And then he is in emails with Larry Summers, where Epstein tells him, when we meet, I will endeavor to mesmerize you with stories of DC. So wild. And then Larry Summers said, I am trying to figure out why American elite think if you murder your baby by beating and abandonment, it must be irrelevant to your admission at Harvard, but hit on a few women 10 years ago and can't work at a network or think tank. Do not repeat this insight. Oops, now everybody has it. So there you go. I mean, that's a...
When you hear a guy say hitting on a woman is a crime now, that is just dudes admitting that their way of hitting on a woman is a crime. Their way of hitting on women is sexual harassment, and they don't realize that, and they love to self-report it. And that's fun. That's fun that we got that self-report from that dude in all of these emails. And, like, I need you guys to understand, as crazy as some of this was, I promise you, we're going to look back on this big leak as some of the least interesting, least spicy stuff to come out of the Epstein files. If the DOJ is right, and what they told other Republicans, so I don't see a reason why they'd lie about this especially. There is a lot more implicating Trump in the Epstein files. Potentially even photos of Trump committing sex crimes, basically. So this is probably just the calm before the storm. Keep your eye out for this situation, and let me know down below if you want me to cover any updates. I assume you do. If you watch this far, comment down below, release the files. Just let me know you watched this far, and, you know, maybe you'll speak it into reality. And, of course, subscribe, leave a like, hype, and comment down below just to support the channel. It really does help a lot. We're fighting an uphill battle against the YouTube algorithm gods, so it really means a lot. Regardless, though, thank you for watching. Hope to see you next time.